Hello, happiness abounders, and welcome back. Today and this week, we are diving into another realm of self care, and that would be social self care. So, what exactly is social self care, and what does it mean to you? I think that can depend wholly on whether you are an introvert, an extrovert, or an ambivert. But I think it also depends on our ability to say no to certain social situations, as well as to say yes, both of which getting out of our comfort zones depending on which side of that pendulum we like to live in, right? Some of us cannot help saying yes to everything, right? We want to be socially accepted, we want to have that social self-care, but it really treads that fine line of, is it self-care to say yes to everything and be worn out and feel like you're letting people down? The other side of this is saying no to everything and not getting the social interactions that we need as human beings and having that as a form of self-care. Which then brings me into this idea of introvert, extrovert, and ambivert. Right? It's not whether you're shy or outgoing, it's more along the lines of how you get your energy, how you're able to recharge as a human being. Now, I'm not an expert in introverts or extroverts or ambiverts, but I have a rough idea. So I want to just go into what I know about each of these categories and encourage you to maybe do a little bit of extra research. And in fact, you may be hearing me mention the name ambivert and not quite know what that means. That's someone who is kind of in between both realms. So an extrovert is someone who gets their energy by spending time with people. They are energized by those social conversations, by being around other individuals. That brings them up. Whereas introverts like to get their energy by being alone. That does not mean that they are not outgoing. That just means that when the time comes, after they've hung out with people, they need to recharge and re-energize by being a little bit alone, spending some quiet time to really bring themselves back up. Ambiverts are a combo of the two, where they can get energy by being with other people, but they can also get energy by being alone. So if you've ever heard the introvert and extrovert scale and been like, I kind of feel like I don't fit in either of those, that's where the ambiverts come in. And fun fact, I am actually an ambivert. I can get really jazzed and energized and feel completely empowered when I hang out with other people. But I also can feel completely jazzed and empowered by spending time alone and by myself. And so I have this really nice balance, if I can go so far to say that, of my self-care, where I know that I need to have social self-care to be around people to keep me energized. But I also know that I have to have the ability to say no and to prioritize and set expectations so that I can have that back-end self-care where it's me by myself. So whether you're an ambivert and you need the combo of the two, or you're an extrovert or an introvert and you need one or the other, that's what I want to talk about today when it comes to self-care. This social self-care, as I'd mentioned, is our ability to really identify what would help us the most. Because I'm an ambivert, I hope that I have a little bit of expertise in both areas to really share my experience and hopefully speak to you if you fall into one of the two main categories and are not necessarily an ambivert. So here's an idea of what social self-care looked like for me before I discovered and created and maintained a balance of social self-care. I would have one of two things happen. I would have a jam-packed social schedule. So jam-packed, in fact, that there was no room for anything. It was like, go to work, go hang out with people, come home, sleep, go to work. Just that cycle would continue. And I found that I would get myself burned out because I'd have way too many expectations on my plate because I loved getting my energy from social situations. But I couldn't say no to social situations, and it started to really get me into some entanglements of double booking, letting people down, and burnout. So, well, as an extrovert, and maybe driven by social situations, I was putting myself in situations where it was almost so much social that it bordered on the edge of not self-care, but really kind of self-abuse. Like there was no rest for me there. There was no coming into who I am by myself. So that's phase one, right? If you're an extrovert, maybe you can relate. Now, phase two is because I would go to such extremes on the extroverted side, then I would be so burned out, I would go to extremes on the introverted side. And I'd be like, well, I need to get all my energy from really reconnecting with myself, realigning, knowing who I am when I'm not in social situations with other people. Who am I and how can I reconnect with that? Great form of self-care. But I found that I would go to the polar opposite. So it would be like months of not going and hanging out with people, months of not really connecting with other individuals, and really living inside of my own head, which also wasn't really social self-care, because then I was lonely and kind of depressed and had no one to bounce ideas off of, no one to really just connect with. Now, I'm not saying social self-care needs to be a big group of people. It could be having a lunch with a friend. But we have to be able to find that social self-care balance. And it starts with, again, knowing where you get your energy and then working towards that. But not so much in the extreme where you are so in that world that you're getting burned out on the back end. So social self-care, and what we're going to be talking about this week, is understanding where you get your energy, the ability to say no so you can say yes to the right things. I think that can categorize for whether you're an introvert, extrovert, or ambivert. Being able to get organized with your social self-care, because that's crucial, because there's other people involved. We've got to really plan things out. And then being part of groups and really pushing your boundaries, whether that's book clubs, meetups, networking events, going to dinners, lunches, whatever that may be. And then having that ability to manage our relationships, whether it's with ourselves or with other people, in that social self-care setting. So that's what we'll be talking about this week. But today, I want you to really identify whether you get your energy from social situations with other people, whether you get your energy from those social interactions with just yourself, or whether you kind of have a combo of the two. There is no right or wrong. But knowing and understanding how you function and what those templates are can really help you identify the best forms of social self-care for you, so that you can have that social balance, but also that self-care balance as we look at the big five of the physical, emotional, social, intellectual, and spiritual self-cares. So I'm going to leave you with that today. I know that it's really simple. You may be like, oh yeah, I'm totally an extrovert. I'm totally an introvert. Oh yeah, I'm an ambivert. And it may seem really simple, but paying attention to this when it comes to our social expectations, our social energy management, and our social self-care, as they all kind of go together, is crucial to this week and understanding social self-care in its entirety. So be thinking about that today or whenever you're listening to this before you dive into the continuing episodes, and really take a look at how you set yourself up for success in depending which of those verts, right, intro, ambi, or extro, that you are. So I'm going to leave you here with that today, because I think it's important to just give us some time to reflect on where we're at and also where we may need to be. So if you liked this episode, or you're excited for this theme week all about social self-care, be sure to rate, review, and subscribe on your listening platform of choice. If you would like to leave a review, you can do so on Apple Podcasts by searching Happiness Abound, then going to the bottom and leaving a written review or tapping those 5 stars. If you are not an Apple user, you can also leave a review on Facebook at Happiness Abound blog on Facebook, and there's a section for reviews, and you can leave a 5-star and written review there as well if you so wish. So that said, have a wonderful day. Be thinking about how you manage your energy and what you do in forms of social self-care, and above everything else, remember, you are capable of happiness abound.